Good evening, good evening. Mark from Pretoria, from the city, from the 012. Liam Neeson, except I'm not taken. Maybe taken for one sometimes, who knows? Eita. Daze, anti-Klee. Generally, from Kokstad in KZN. Stamford, away. Yes, 800 people already. Layer Wendell, I see you come to the R. You don't have a swimming pool. Norman, I see you. Auntie Zelly, I see you as well. Ek is net so geskok. The number is just going up. I think, when you say come up, magic happens. Leandre, hello. Rebecca Malgas, hello. My people from Namibia are also here. How do you do it? You do it like that. My people from Namibia. And I must say, I never say this enough. But the people from Namibia are my second biggest viewers outside of people in South Africa. There are people in Namibia, and I counted them. It's about 100,000 different people, 50 to 100,000 different people who watch the content in Namibia. So I want to say to everybody in Namibia, thank you very, very much. Baie dankie. Ek waardeer het. Naand Mariana, naand Rochelle. Agnes, away. I think I'm going to start on 1,000. There we got 1,000. Nancy, everybody. Nancy. Okay. So, there's a reason that I decided to do this live tonight. Ons is tussen. There's a very important reason I decided to do this live. And I actually wanted to do it yesterday. But yesterday was not the right time for me to do this live. Today is the right time for me to do this live. And I want to start by saying that what the Patriotic Alliance is, you like your father, lost for 8. I want to say what the Patriotic Alliance is doing is something that has not been seen in our country's history. The Patriotic Alliance is bringing us together. We are being brought together on another level that we haven't seen before. And for that is something that my heart is happy about. When I woke up yesterday morning and I saw that video, ek het van die oor tot die oor gesmile. I was smiling so much because it showed me that we are decisive. I knew this already, but it proves it even further. And that is why, when I even read the headlines that MultiChoice said, jou tyd is verby, that's when I knew, ons by's aan nie. Die mense daar buite, hulle gaan nooit weer by's aan nie. And this is something that should show what we are. And I'm really happy to see it. The action that we've taken and what we are doing. This is real things. This isn't just talking. It isn't just showing. It isn't just pointing out what the issue is. It is also talking about the issue. And this also goes to show, I want you to notice something. And this is what I noticed in discussions when I was walking around and just having discussions with people about this. Because people obviously asked me about this wherever I went, whether it was in Pretoria or Joburg. People asked, or people said, regardless of their race, white people told this to me, Indian people told this to me, black people told this to me, and colored people told this to me. They said, what the Patriotic Alliance is doing, by taking on these racist remarks, by taking on these individuals, making an example, is the right thing to do. That is justice. That is real. Because the PA, as we say, is not a colored party. We are a colorful party. That is what we are. Klappen. That is it. Everybody is here. Ons almal is here. Patriotic. That is the whole South Africa. So that's something that makes me exceptionally happy. But I was sitting and I was actually having a discussion with the fellow patriot while this happened. I was talking to Evan Botha while this happened. Because I got a notification and I checked the notification and I see that the DA has released a statement saying that they are taking Open Chats podcast to the Human Rights Commission. Now when I saw that, the first thing that I did was I looked who wrote that statement. I wanted to see who they had sent to write that statement. They had sent Dr. Ivan Meyer to write that statement. Dr. Ivan Meyer is the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance. Listen, follow this. Now, in the Democratic Alliance's top structure, and I even have it open here in front of me, if you go and Google and you search DA, Our People, there's a heading that says National Leadership. On this page is 12 people. Of this 12 people, Dr. Ivan Meyer is here. His name is here. He's the one who wrote the statement. But of this 12 people where it says National Leadership, the leadership nationally, are you ready for this? There's only one colored person on this page. And that is Dr. Ivan Meyer. The same person that they sent to write this. Think about that. Think about why. Then think about also the reasons why I left. Remember when I said that they only see us when it comes to issues about us. When we must now kamakastag make it look like we care. They send the one colored person to go and talk about an issue about colored people. The one out of 12. To make it look as if there are colored people there. We must understand this. This is not representation. This is tokenization. That is what it is. It is tokenization. This is tokenism. And for those of you that don't know what tokenism is, it is having a person of a particular demographic, having a person of a particular race group, sexual orientation, gender, speak on the matter relating to the gender or the race group or the sexual orientation, and then purporting, making it look as if this is a general party view, making it look as if it is the general view, when in actual fact, that person is used for that cause because that is going to be the most appropriate cause, and it masks what that person is standing on and what that person is standing about. So that is what is happening here. That made me very angry. So it took me back to something that happened in October last year. It was October 24th. I delivered a speech in a motion that was presented by Umbiza, believe it or not. Umbiza presents a motion for a debate. And the debate's topic is, I'm going to read it, calling on the executive government to officially recognize Khoi, San, and colored people as Africans in particular, and not just blacks in general. Now, I'm sure you know this. That this is a very contentious topic. But this debate, the point of the debate, and what Umbiza was trying to accomplish via the debate is something profound. It is something that goes deeper than just the title of a debate. It goes into the economics of our country. It goes into the social political standing of our country. It goes deeper and deeper and deeper than we can possibly imagine. Right? Now, obviously, what does the DA do? They send myself to speak, and they send Joe McGlua to speak. They send the two colored guys, 2 out of 87 people in the National Assembly. They send the 2 colored guys that they got, right? Bearing in mind they have about 5 or 4 other colored people there. They send 2 that are in Sports, Arts and Culture, Portfolio Committee, to go and speak on this topic. For obvious reasons, right? There's clearly something there. And I give the speech, and when I'm finished giving the speech, I'm going to read the comments in a second, just before we move on to what I want to get to here. When I'm done with the speech, I get a fair amount of hand claps. And remember, this wasn't in Parliament, it was virtual. But later that night, I get a message saying that my speech was something that could be considered as divisive because it features the name of Jan van Riebeeck. That my speech could cause division and target, quote, the base of the DA by mentioning Jan van Riebeeck. Now I want to ask all of you that are watching here, if I say the name Jan van Riebeeck in a negative light, are you offended? Is that an offensive thing to say? I'm reading. Ad break. I'm asking, is it an offensive thing to say Jan van Riebeeck's name in a negative light? It obviously is not, because of what the man did. But then, that is what is said to me. That there is what is said, that it is a divisive speech, that it could be considered as divisive. And there I'm saying, we agree. It's not offensive to say Jan van Riebeeck's name in a negative light. Everybody knows what the guy did. Everybody knows what the intention was, right? Jan van Riebeeck. Now must you find pain? No, because you know what the guy did, right? I don't think there's Belgian people that would be offended by hearing the name King Leopold. I don't think so. I do not think so. That is a man who cut off the hands of Congolese people. That is a man who cut off the hands, the knees. He cut off the legs. He cut off fingers. He cut off ears. I don't think that there's a Belgian person who disagrees with the fact that that man was a ruthless colonizer. So in the same vein, how can you say that mentioning the name Jan van Riebeeck is divisive? And mentioning it in a negative light is divisive. What does that actually say? If you are saying the name Jan van Riebeeck in a negative light is divisive, what does that say about you on the inside? What does that say about what you consider your base to be? What does that say? Do you consider then that your base is something that sees Jan van Riebeeck in a positive light? Is that what they are actually saying? Because when you hear something, you must ask what is said behind that something and what is implied behind that something, right? So that there should tell you, okay, but why are we defending Jan van Riebeeck here? Why is it divisive to mention what Jan van Riebeeck did? So what I'm going to do tonight is, this is the speech that nobody's heard of. That's what I call it, because I've never uploaded it. I've only uploaded quotes of it. I've never ever mentioned the speech on Facebook in its entirety. Mentioned that it was going to happen, but never mentioned the speech. So this is a deep speech to me. When it happened, I got videos of people crying because of the speech. Because this speech is one of the first of its kind. And before I carry on, I want to say a special thank you to Mbiza, to Ashley Souls, Ashley Koike, the first Souls, for bringing this motion. Because this one here is a special one. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to read this speech. I'm going to read it in its entirety. Then what I'm going to do is, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to unpack it. That's why I said we're coming in for a lecture today. So what I meant here is that we're going to look at it and then we're going to unpack it, because I feel as though one of the things we need is not only to know what we are, but to understand where we come from, how we are positioned in this democratic society, what it is that our place is inside of this democratic society, who we are within it, so that we can explain why we stand for what we stand for, so that we can explain why it is that we believe in what we believe in, right? So, before I carry on, let me just say thank you to everybody that's here, all 1,600 of you that are watching live. I thank you for this. And without further ado, let's go. So I'm going to read through it, obviously not in entire speech tone, because imagine having to deliver this as a speech at 8:17 on a Thursday, right? So next time I go live, wear a suit. The message is not determined by what the messenger is wearing. You must hear the message, all right? So here we go. And the speech is very, very special to me. So bear with me. I'm going to read through it. It's going to take about 5-7 minutes to read through. Honorable Chairperson, today I give this speech on the shoulders of Khoi, San, and colored giants who laid down their lives for the freedoms we as Africans enjoy today. Ek is 'n kind van Kimberley en 'n kleinkind van Graaf Reinet en ek weet vir 'n feit dat daar talle kleerlingkinders is wat nes ekke hulle eie identiteite bevraagteken. Agbare voorsitter, hierdie debat weerspieël wie ek werklik is. Dit gee dus vir my die kans om hierdie injustice reg te stel. Today, we are participating in a debate that seeks to play its part in answering the national question. Today, we answer the question as to how a subject who was once a victim of colonial oppression positions themselves in a post-colonial society. Today, we finally provide Khoi, San, and colored people with a history-making debate that acknowledges our struggles, our heritage, and our existence. Honorable Chairperson, as Haile Selassie put it, until the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior is finally and permanently discredited and abandoned, until the color of a man's skin is of no more significance than the color of his eyes, until basic human rights are guaranteed to all without regard to race, the African continent will not know peace. Through this definition, we can see how the plight of what makes somebody black is shared struggles, shared suffering, and shared aspirations. So when Jan van Riebeeck came to the Cape, he did not come for love and fresh air. He came to conquer and brutalize the Khoi and San people first. Jan van Riebeeck did not see a group of conformists and non-conformists. Heartlessly in his journals, he called us all, the Khoi, barbarians. With this notion in his heart, he built picket fences around rivers and imprisoned, the R word, and murdered my people in the name of business. In this case, a large human trafficking business. What follows is that his company, the VOC, starts shipping more of my ancestors from across the Indian Ocean against their will. His company packed them into ships like sardines and transported them to Cape Town, where they would be sold like items at a grocery shop. Honorable Chairperson, as I illustrate these examples, my hope is that it becomes clear to this House that Khoi, San, and colored people have shared struggles with our brothers and sisters. We too have suffered at the hands of colonial powers. We too have struggled and waged war against the colonial project. Our struggle in resisting the Dutch, the British, and the Portuguese was gruesome, bitter, and icy cold. It was far from any flow joke. Our battles and eventual victory against the apartheid regime have become a monument of something that is not recognized by this government. With our shared struggles, suffering, and aspirations to leave behind a better country than the one we were born into, it becomes undeniable that colored, Khoi, and San people are African, whether you like it or not. We are of this continent. But, Honorable Speaker, who qualifies as African? Academics typically define the markers of an identity as geographical ancestry, cultural heritage, historical experiences, and socio-political context. If this is the case, once more, Khoi, San, and colored people must be included as Africans in particular. It is impossible to dismiss the notion that colored people harbor Khoi and San DNA, and that Khoi and San DNA is undeniably an African DNA. Early mitochondrial DNA samples point toward Khoi and San people being inhabitants of Africa for thousands of years before colonialism. With DNA found in Ethiopia, Namibia, and South Africa agreeing that a shared DNA is found within human remains across the continent. Honorable members, if you want a signal geographically, we are also African. Culturally, it is no misconception that the experiences of Khoi, San, and colored people also originated in Africa. Rock paintings in the Blombos and Kango caves indicate the cultural practices of the First Nation, and they act as indisputable evidence of a culture native to this continent. With colored people, our classification became our culture, and our culture was founded in the depths of colonial oppression. Our culture is found in the way we talk, the way we walk, the food we eat, and the liveliness of our neighborhoods and the way that we are. This is also supported by our language, Afrikaans. A language born on the African continent that owes a significant amount of its creation to colored people. Honorable Speaker, with that being said, I must categorically state that our heroes deserve to be acknowledged and honored in this House too. Utsumato, known as Harry the Strandloper, doctored British sailors and traded at the Cape long before the Dutch came. It wasn't until Jan van Riebeeck that he was imprisoned. At the same time, he became the first person to escape Robben Island by boat. A Khoi man, for the crime that was his existence, for the crime of just being himself, for the crime of being colored, was murdered by Jan van Riebeeck. Sarah Baartman, a Khoi woman, was captured and made to perform at freak shows, merely for the way she looked. They mocked her as they do us today still. Her Center for Remembrance remains a disgrace, with money being stolen and her graveside's dignity being tarnished and disrespected. Abraham Eso, a colored man who was beaten, bludgeoned and lashed with whips alongside the road of Calvinia. It gets worse. This is hier. It gets worse. He was also shackled and dragged by horses for 8 kilometers and then beaten one more time and shot dead by a commando of the Orange Free State. My auntie, Ma Joy Stewart, who nearly became the 5th member of the Craddock Four, a colored woman from Graafrenet who was sentenced to solitary confinement, a woman, solitary confinement by the apartheid government for fighting against that ruthless regime. Honorable Chairperson, I highlight these experiences because they are not isolated events. They are all part of a history that has been violently and deliberately silenced. Why is it that the struggle icons that are not colored Khoi or San have legacies and stories that are widely known and widely spread? Why is it we don't tell the truth to an entire nation? Why is it that only some memorials have dignity while some are incomplete, vandalized and broken? Why is it that we must constantly look at the reminders that say we are not seen, that nobody cares about our history other than us? Why is it that Sarah Baartman is still having her dignity viciously taken away from her 200 years later? Hoekom is dit dat Otjomato se geskiedenis nog steeds weggelaat is? Why is it that Abraham Eso's history has been defaced as if it was also dragged across the tar? Hoekom beklei David Stierman nog steeds teen kolonialisme? Hoekom word ons nog steeds nie raak gesien nie as dit by werk en bevordering kom? Hoekom word ons dieselfde behandel as dit by geleenthede kom nie? These experiences are all experiences that sit within my DNA. And the DNA of a great many present in this house today. A house that sits not more than 200 meters from a tree where my ancestors were auctioned for a penny as if their lives meant nothing. In 2024, we can no longer remain silent. We must make our voices thick in the name of our ancestors and those who are still living. It is not only about them, it is about the millions more that are still living in poverty and that are still living in isolation. We sing about our mothers and our fathers being kitchen girls and garden boys, but we don't acknowledge or tell the story of Kretoa, who is our Khoi mother, who worked in Jan van Riebeeck's kitchen. We don't tell the story of my own great-grandmother, Mam Pauline, who also worked in a kitchen. We don't tell the stories of our fathers who became bond servants on farms. Yes, honorable members, you heard me correctly. Khoi, San, and colored people served in bondage as slaves. We talk about the injustices of apartheid, but pretend as if colored, Khoi, and San people suffered a different apartheid. Some argued that colored people had representation within the tricameral parliament. But let me put the record straight. The overwhelming majority of colored people disapproved of the tricameral system of parliament. We talk about land dispossession, but we ignore who was systemically murdered by guns and diseases such as pox brought by settlers to our shores. Ons maak asof ons fyn is, terwyl ons, die Khoi en San, sukkel vir 'n bestaansreg, terwyl ons bid dat dinge beter sal word. Honorable Chairperson, if anyone in this house refuses to acknowledge that Khoi, San, and colored people are also Africans in particular, may the history books remember them as being tone deaf to a struggle that is over 500 years old. I would go as far as to say that they are complicit in continuing the crimes of the past. Because if you are unable to see the 500-year-old struggle of my people, you will never be able to see me or my people. We cannot move forward if we do not answer the national question. We cannot wholeheartedly move toward non-racialism if the existence of Khoi, San, and colored people is not considered an African existence. Agbare voorsitter, as ons saam staan, staan ons sterk. As ons apart staan, staan ons swak. I thank you. That speech there, that speech was our speech. And I think that the reason that this speech here got me into trouble, that it got me backlash, that it got me internal backlash, that it got me people looking at me dirty, I think that this speech here is the reason. Because this is our speech. And they never wanted us. They don't want us at the table. Hulle het ons nooit by die tafel gesoek nie. They never wanted us. They set us at the table. Nee? They give us a seat at the table. But when they give us a seat at the table, and I want every single colored person in the DA to hear me now when I say this, they pretend as if they give us a seat at the table. En as reg, that is true, they give you a seat at the table. Maar jou bord is leeg. Your plate has no food inside of it. Do you realize that? Every single time that you are overlooked, is want jy het nie geëet nie. Daar was nie kos op jou tafel nie. How do you run a race against somebody who has eaten nutritious meals? How do you run a race against somebody when your own plate, when your plate on a spiritual level had nothing inside of it? How do you run? And when those who have eaten, those who have sat at the plates of power, those who have sat there, run, and they ask you, they look back at you and they say, don't worry, your time will come. They are telling you, you are only going to get there when I say you get there. You know, the day that happened, the day I was told to tone down, the day I was told, keep quiet, that day, I felt a sense of anger inside of me. I was angry. Now, anybody that knows me understands that I'm composed 99.9% of the time. The 0.1% of the time that I'm not composed is when I'm laughing. And then that small, die klein stuk hier, waar ek ook hand uitdruk. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. That there said something. And I felt an anger that I couldn't even describe. I felt an anger that was beyond the comprehension of words, that was beyond our understanding of what anger is. I did not know what it was. I had no idea what that anger was. And then I sat and I thought about it. And I said this to Mbiza. I said this to Mbiza. That wasn't my anger. It was their anger. That was hulle se kwaad. It was the same anger that my ancestors felt when their existence was being denied. So when somebody says that this is an immature reaction, what they are missing is that in this entire context, it is the denial of identity and expression. It is the denial of the self. And we as people are reliant on the self. Because the self is how we interface and how we interact with other people. So when our self is being denied and when our identity is being denied, on some man's views, who and what we are is taken away from us. Now you can say that that's impossible. Maar wanneer jou bord leeg is, and all you have is a name, all you have is a badge, that doesn't care about you. All you have is these things. But then for that to be thrown away is to deny you of your bestaansrecht. To deny you of your dignity. It is to say that I do not see you. It is to say that I do not consider you a human being. It is to say that you are non-human. I studied philosophy at university. And one of the disciplines of philosophy, or the classes of philosophy I enjoyed the most, was Ubuntu. Now, Ubuntu's entire understanding is that of personhood and relative to persons being persons and non-persons. Now, persons exist within one society, right? These are persons, and Ubuntu stretches past persons. It can go even to animals, it can go to trees, it can go to anything, right? Now, this is very important because in such a society where our society is reliant on seeing each other, right? Umuntu ngamuntu ngabantu, right? A person is a person through other people. In a society where we are reliant on being able to see each other, right? Acknowledge each other's existence. To acknowledge that there's another self, as 'n ander mens waarmee ek saam praat, right? In a society like that, if you are not seen, as jy nie gesien is nie, if you are not seen in that society, you're not a person. Your personhood has been taken away from you. Your personhood has been stripped from you. So people have the ability to take your personhood away from you. So when the likes of Gayton McKenzie, and when the likes of Ashley Souls, and when the likes of all of my other brothers and sisters inside of this party, my powerful, my wonderful people inside of this party who have welcomed me with love, and who I love so much more, all of you in Mossel Bay, in Veldrift, in Kimberley, waar ook al jy is, in die Kaap, waar ook al jy is, when all of us say we only have us, regardless of what you look like, it is to say we see each other. Ons sal altyd mekaar sien. We will never, ever, ever drop each other. We will always, always, always see each other. Yo, that is humanity. That is why this party is South Africa's future. Want these men stom nie binne. There is humanity inside of this party. Ons sien mekaar in die party. We acknowledge each other in this party. We see each other. We are the future. So, what I'm going to do now is, ek gaan vir my 'n dik stuk water loop kry. En ek is baie dors, my keel is droog gepraat. Ek gaan vir my 'n dik stuk water kry, nee. Ek gaan hom wys. And then we're going to go through the speech. Nee. In the meantime, don't go anywhere. I'm going to be gone for like 20 seconds. Salute. Haal my dik stuk koue water ook lekker leeg. Okay. The ad break is finished. Right. My water is ook lekker leeg, maar dat is reg. Ek is van die Noord-Kaap. Dat is warm and it only rains a few times a year. I can make it. But I want to say I love everybody watching this live. Ons is regtig familie hierso. So, Ashley, you can leave that guy. That one is personal. Okay. So let's unpack the speech. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to unpack a part, right? We're going to go through what it is. And then I'm going to read what some of you are saying while I'm saying it, and I'm going to respond to that, right? So, Honorable Chairperson, today I give this speech on the shoulders of Khoi and San and colored giants who laid their lives down for the freedoms we as Africans enjoy today. There's a very crucial reason that I started off like this, right? Because it ties with the last part of the speech. I wrote it in a way that the beginning and the end connect with each other. That the point I was trying, jy gaan nou moet tank ook gaan leegmaak. Nee, ek is ons besig, ek kom weg. So, I want to say that here, you always start something to plant the seed, and then as you end it, right, what you're going to do is, you must say it again, but with the entire part above, having given the substantiation behind what it is that you are saying, having explained what it is that you are trying to say, right? So I say, Khoi, San, and colored giants who laid down their lives for the freedoms we as Africans enjoy today. In that qualification there, just that sentence, I'm speaking to the social-political history. I am speaking to the history. I am speaking to shared struggles. I am speaking to geography. And I'm speaking to geographical origin. That is all of the things that I say later in the speech. Because this here signals where the speech is going to, where we are going. Alright? So, then I say, ek is 'n kind van Kimberley en 'n klein kind van Graaf-Reinet. Obviously, I was born and raised in Kimberley. Most of my family comes from Graaf-Reinet. So, I'm Graaf-Reinet's klein kind. En ek weet vir 'n feit dat daar talle kleerlingkinders is wat nes ek hul eie identiteit te bevraagteken. Now, this one is for colored youth who, like me, born after 2000, you know, we were born not in the struggle, but our parents know somewhat of it. Now, here, you must realize what's going on here. A young colored child questions their identity all the time. You'll find that maybe he's wearing the shirt of a football team, a soccer team. Maybe he is identifying with something, he's adopting an accent. Maybe the young colored child is now also speaking in a certain way or affiliating with a certain history. That doesn't just happen for no reason. His role models might even be from another country. That happens because that child might be wondering what their identity is. So, when I say just like me, I speak from personal experience, having grown up in a place like Kimberley, having grown up in the Northern Cape, and having family from Graaf-Reinet. Northern Cape, a province that has majority colored people, 1.2 million people in the province, but nobody else nationally tends to speak about us. Do you see what I'm saying about personhood in this? When we talk about being seen, a province with a majority colored people is an unseen province. And because of that unseenness, you are trying to then find an identity. Do you understand what I'm saying on this? That you are trying to establish identity. So, you must understand that. I want to see, as julle nog met my? As julle nog met my? He adopted what we was taught. Yes, we don't have identity, but he's walking. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Walking in the shadow of his parents. I'm getting there. I am getting there. Don't buy it. Ek kom nog daar. Ek kom nog daar later. I'm still coming there. So I see some people saying we've gained political privileges. I will explain in a second. All right. So, understand that. that there's now this question of identity. And as we walk through this, we are also walking through the maturation of an identity. We are also eventually getting to what it is that this identity is, and how it is perceived, and how it relates to other identities. Right? That is what we are trying to establish here. This story is a story about getting to what identity is. So then I said, agbare voorsitter, hierdie debat weerspieël wie ek werklik is. Dit gee dus vir my 'n kans om hierdie injustice reg te stel. So this debate reflects who I am, who and what I am. That's what I said, right? So when I say this debate shows who and what I am, this debate reflects, my speech is a reflection of that child. Because I am that child. Because you are also that child. Ons was almal daai kind gewees. So, and then I say, it gives me a chance to set this injustice right. It is epistemological violence to deny somebody's identity. It is an act of egregious violence. And it is an injustice to deny somebody's identity and to not see somebody's identity, to not acknowledge somebody. So when I say that this is a chance to set this injustice right, it is because the speech now gives expression. The speech gives expression to people who have been wondering, what the hell am I doing in this country? Who am I? It gives an expression, and by virtue of that, it gives an expression to the entire country to say, see us, acknowledge us. So when I say that this is a chance to set injustice right, this is a chance to look at this injustice, to investigate this injustice, and then to say, how can we fix this? How can we address this? And the first juncture in the speech that seeks to address this is a juncture that comes and says, here we are. That is why it starts off and says, shoulders of Khoi sun and colored giants. Ons is hier, ons is groot, ons is ook in die lande. Julle gaan almal vir ons ook acknowledge. Ons is hier. That is how it starts. So then I say, today we are participating in a debate. This is an important part. I'm going to take it until here. Today we are participating in a debate that seeks to play its part in answering the national question. Today we answer the question as to how a subject who was once a victim of colonial oppression positions themselves in a post-colonial society. Today we finally provide Khoi, San and colored people with a history-making debate that acknowledges our struggles, our heritage and our existence. And listen, there's a reason I'm doing all of this. Every other group in this country has had some form of awakening or awareness, right? Or as they say, consciousness, right? We're going to give that the name. We're going to call it, everyone else has had their moment. But it is our turn to acknowledge who and what we are. It is our turn to say, who are we? This is what we are. It is our turn. We must say beerd as beerd. So when I say this here, answering the national question, this entire part of my speech is inspired by President Gayton McKenzie. This entire part is inspired by President Gayton McKenzie, and I'm going to tell you why. I won't forget that day. And remember, I was a national executive member of the Democratic Alliance. I was in the top structure. In ANC terms, that's the NWC, right? And I said, if this is Parliament, this is the front, this is the back. Ek, wat op die structure gesit het. At the start of Parliament, had me sitting at the back. And you know, they had me sitting with everybody who had also just arrived into politics and all of that. Maar ek is al 7 jaar in die politiek. And I go out and I look at the schedule. And even then, I think it was August, July. Even then, I saw on the schedule, okay, the speeches go. It's MK, it's DA, and there'll be another ANC. Then it's going to be EFF, then another ANC. Then it's going to be IFP, then it's going to be PA. And I knew Gaten McKenzie was speaking there. And I was in a Woolworths. Ek was besig om vir my neute te kry. And I've got another story of what happened there with coffee. But I'm going to save that for another day. I was busy to get nuts. Ek is mal oor roasted and salted cashew nuts, let me tell you that. But I checked on my phone because they had sent it. I said, okay, Gaten's going to speak. Let me go and check out what this man is going to say. And I go sit and I go listen. Ne? And I missed the first part of it. Just a little bit of it. And Prez speaks. And then he looks at President Ramaphosa. And he says that you have the chance to do the first thing. For the first time, you have the chance to answer the national question. And he pauses and he doesn't say anything. Doesn't say anything about the national question further. He doesn't. Right? But what is a national question? I want us to understand what a national question is so that we can articulate it, so that we can tell other people. So, when I say the national question, then I say, we answer the question as to how a subject who was once a victim of colonial oppression positions themselves in a post-colonial society. So let's break it. How does a subject, what is a subject? In philosophy, a subject is considered the individual. Subject looks at object, right? So people are subjects. You'll hear that in a scientific study, they'll say the subject exhibited traits of or the subject experienced, right? Subject. So the subject, that is the person. But in our case as colored people, the subject is us, right? How a subject who was once a victim of colonial oppression, right? Colonial oppression, I don't need to say what that is. Colonial oppression stretches from the 1500s when Francisco de Almeida came to our shores and tried to have a fight with us. And we beat him. It starts there. It starts right there. Okay? So let's walk through it. That's a colonial oppression. We've been at this thing's hand. We've been there. From the 1500s, that's why I say 500 years struggle. Never ever as a colored person say that your struggles are 400 years old. They are not, they are 500 years old. 500. So, once a victim, that is when the subject is subjugated by the oppressor. The subject has been subjugated. The subject, and I speak later in the speech about guns, about pox, about economic systems. The subject has been subjugated. Positions themselves in a post-colonial society. Positions. Now that word there you may think is where you are sitting. But posits. Posits. Sits, situates themselves, finds themselves, relates with others, identifies within a post-colonial society, a society after colonization. A society after colonization. That is why it is called a national question. Nation question. Let me do it this way because you're looking this way. Yeah, no. Nation question. Nation. What is a nation? We know what a nation is. We think we know what a nation is, right? Nation is the democratic system, the state that we find ourselves in, and how our positioning within that state makes us a part of that nation. How we identify, how we are within the system, who and what we are relative to the system that we are within, who and what we are related, how it relates to where we find ourselves. So when I say that, I want you to think of, yes, you must know it's everywhere when I said so. When I say this, I want you to think about somebody you know. Think about, we'll end up being taken to court. Okay, I want you to sit and think about this. When I say an individual positioning themselves in a society, I want you to think about anybody. I want you to think about a young petty man within Soshanguve, particularly Jukuleng. Jukuleng is an area where there is tremendous amounts of crime. It is an area that is ravaged by gangsterism. Right? Jukuleng also has a drug problem. It also has an illegal foreigner problem. There's an entire settlement there that blocks a literal road. Right? And you must think of how it is to live there. What do you see? What do you see when you wake up in the morning? This national question does not have to be necessarily about the colored person, because the point of the speech is that we are also African, right? So I want you to think, what does an 11-year-old child see when he wakes up in the morning? He goes outside, he walks to school. He looks, I've been to Jubilee. He looks and he sees the grass is tall, cemetery there's a plastic flowing in the cemetery. These guys over here, they're together, wondering why are they together? Wondering, when I go to school, what am I going to do? Coming back home from school, getting approached by those same guys, figuring out what I am, what my identity is. And a few years later, I'm in a gang. How is my positioning in the society and my positioning later relative to the society? And how has that society positioned itself towards me? Because this positioning is going to impact how I respond. I see no opportunities where I live. I see that there's trouble here where I live. I see gangsterism where I live. I see crime where I live. It sounds like I'm talking about Mitchell's Plain. It sounds like I'm talking about Mannenberg. It sounds like I'm talking about Alex. It sounds like I'm talking about all of these places, because the struggle of a victim of colonial oppression is the same throughout. So when I as a young man figure myself out in the society, I see that the society has crafted a living arrangement, an artificial living arrangement, where I do not have access to employment, where there is drug abuse within my immediate surroundings, where there is violence within my immediate surroundings, where there's gangsterism in my immediate surroundings. And I see this happening. And now I must position myself relative to all of these things. Now, that there is an individual basis. But what is a society if not a collection of individuals? So when the experience of an individual finds itself as a shared experience among numerous people, among a lot of people, many people see the same thing, share the same things, then that group of people needs to answer, what is the national question unto them? What is this thing that we call a national question? So that is what the national question is, right? I give the Haile Selassie quote about the philosophy which holds one race superior and another inferior. That there speaks to this cognitive dissonance, and cognitive dissonance is holding two thoughts that are contrasting within your head, two different thoughts in the same brain, right? That's cognitive dissonance. It is like saying, it's like saying, I like Kaiser Chiefs, but I also like Orlando Pirates. I support both of them. It's like saying, nah, I support the Stormers and the Blue Bulls. It's like saying, I support the DA and the PA. You can't do that. That is cognitive dissonance in action, right? So that in and of itself is to address that cognitive dissonance, and it must be discredited and abandoned, right? So the entire context of the speech is then to create non-racialism. That is what it is as well. And I say through the definition, right, we can see what makes a black person is shared struggles, shared suffering, shared aspirations. Shared struggles, you've experienced the same form of oppression, you've experienced the same violence done unto you, you've seen the same othering happen to you. Shared suffering, that is when you're not seen. Shared aspirations, that is the same hopes. Now this is where I say, the child in Jukulane and the child in Mitchell's Plain, they rhyme, by the way. Don't forget Siwelele. This is why that's not cognitive dissonance. We all know where we sit with Siwelele. So what I'm saying here is that the child in Jukulane and the child that is in Mitchell's Plain, right? These two children have similar struggles. They have similar suffering. But at the same time, they are children who have the same hope. Does that not mean that they are the same? Does that not mean that they share a struggle? Follow me here, walk with me. If they are the same, then why are they treated differently? If these children are the same, then why is it that the government is not treating them the same when they grow up? We must ask this question about racial classification and ask on how do you quantify struggle? How do you quantify oppression and the experience of oppression? It is only upon that quantification, and it is only upon understanding that we can then begin to understand how we relate. So then I say, so this here was in response because another member of parliament, before I spoke, said that Jan van Riebeeck saw a group of conforming people and non-conforming people. What that means is he saw people that were like, oh, cool, we can work with the Dutch. And then he saw people that were like, no, they don't want to work with us. He saw a split, right? And that justified his actions. But then I say, when Jan van Riebeeck, and this was divisive, this was seen as divisive, right? I do not think this is divisive at all, right? So when Jan van Riebeeck came to the Cape, he did not come for love and fresh air. He came to conquer and brutalize the Khoi and San people first. Jan van Riebeeck did not see a group of conformists and non-conformists. Heartlessly in his journals, he called us all the Khoi barbarians. With this notion in his heart, he built picket fences around rivers and imprisoned and R-word, of course, ek sal dit in Afrikaans sê, want Facebook sal dit nie optel nie, verkrag, and murdered my people in the name of business. In this case, a large human trafficking business. Now, here. Here's something here that I want us to sit on. Ek weet ons kan nie hele aansit met die ding, is reg. This here, there's a romanticized explanation of Jan van Riebeeck. That he came here to set up a trading outpost. Right? All good. All good. Right? All good. That's what they said. But past that romanticization, past that making it look like it was a good intention, is missing what was necessary to set up that outpost. Now, I say here that he called the Khoi barbarians. I say that to say, he literally did this, by the way. This is documented. He said that Khoi people are barbarians. Barbarians. And do you know why he said barbarians? Because even Jan van Riebeeck knew that he had to dehumanize. He had to dehumanize these people before he could actually do something to them. That man in Germany with the mustache did the same thing. He understood he had to dehumanize them before he could do something to them. Understand this. Then I say, Jan van Riebeeck built picket fences around rivers, imprisoned, verkracht, and murdered my people in the name of business. Why is this unique? Because before Jan van Riebeeck had come over, have you ever asked yourself why Ochumato, why Kratoa was able to speak Dutch, or English, Portuguese, why they were able to speak these languages? The reason they spoke these languages is because before the Dutch came, the Khoi there had a relationship, like I say, he doctored British sailors. The Khoi in the Cape had a relationship where they said, this is our land, right? This here, this here. You found us here. Now, you have an option. You can go or you can work with us in a way that's mutually beneficial. That we can benefit together. Because keep in mind, and this is in the lie of 1652, keep in mind that Khoi society is structured like this, right? It's not a pyramid. It is a circle that goes out, out, out. Because on the Samanidam, that's why we say we were Sam, we together, all of that. Because that's how we see it, right? So if you are from outside of that society and you come in, and your society is a triangle society where there's top and bottom, right? When you come in and you try to impose that, you don't belong in a circle society. But the British came, yes, the British, they came and they said they wanted to work with. So what did they do? They went even to Robben Island, right? They went to Robben Island and they set up a trading outpost where the Khoi people at the time benefited, the British benefited, they grew stock together, they gave water to sailors coming past, and what did the Khoi get in exchange? They got different things, they got good things, right? Not Jan van Riebeeck. Jan van Riebeeck was the first person, the very first person to come to the Cape, to look at a river of another group of people, to look at the source of water, to look at the source of life, life itself, to look at the source of life and to say, you are no longer in charge of your source of life. We are in charge of your life. And we are going to build a picket fence on your life. We are going to take the very food that you put in your stomach. Does that not sound familiar? You don't find that suspicious. In the words of Dr. Umar, you don't find that suspicious. You don't hear that? You don't hear what just happened. You don't hear my story in the day. You don't hear the same thing. You don't hear. So, and then what does he do? He imprisons. So he takes people to Robben Island. He builds a prison there. That's why the name for Robben Island, Robben Eiland, is R-O-B-B-E-N. Not Robin like the name. It's R-O-B-B-E-N. Why? Because robbe, what is a rob? It's a seal. Robben Eiland, Seal Island. There you have it. So he goes there, sets up the prison there, and imprisons. Then what else does he do? Kidnaps. In the middle of the night, he kidnaps people. What else does he do? Kills them. What does he do to our great-grandmothers? To our ancestors? Verkrachts them. Him and all of his colleagues. So hear what is being said here. Hear. I want you to hear this and think about today. Think about that blue party. Think about it. The source of life. Even while I'm speaking to you, I'm getting revelations about what it is I was saying here. So the source of life taken. And when the source of life is taken, that is no longer a human being. And when that is no longer a human being, that's why I said, Vernon, they doctored people. When you take away the source of life, you take away the human being. And when that is no longer a human being, you have dehumanized them. When you dehumanize them, they are non-humans, and therefore you can do whatever you want. That is the logic. And that is how it starts. And I say what follows is that his company, the VOC, starts shipping more of my ancestors across the Indian Ocean against their will. Right? We know this, what the VOC did, what his company did. Right? His company, and I just want to say, this same Jan van Riebeeck that I just spoke about, I wasn't allowed to mention because it's divisive. His company packed them into ships like sardines and transported them to Cape Town, where they would be sold like items at a grocery shop. There's a reason I said grocery shop and sardines, because grocery shop and sardines speaks to the item at the grocery shop. Now, that there also speaks to dehumanization. If I can see another human being and I think that it's okay and viable to pack that human being into a ship, body to body, right? And the way they packed them, oh my goodness. Next to each other, like this, right? Like this. And not just next to each other, flat. And on top of each other. So many people, when transported by the VOC, get taken all the way across the Indian Ocean and come to South Africa. But not many of them make it. Why? Because while you are laying at the top, like this, without a proper bathroom, you can think most what's happening to the person at the bottom. The person at the bottom must take everything that is coming from the top. And I don't want to say what it is. SHIT, right? All of that. I'm not going to say it on a live. I'm not swearing on a live. SHIT. I'm going to use the proper English words. The defecation and the urination of another human being. They must take that. If you are sitting at the bottom, it lands on you. And you die because you got sick. So they packed us like that. And after packing us like that, they're bringing us here. They sell us. After selling us, we're still just animals on a farm. Okay, Honorable Chairperson, as I illustrate these examples, my hope is that it becomes clear that colored Kwa and San people have shared struggles with our brothers and sisters. We also suffered at the hands of colonial powers. Think about Xhosa people. Think about Zulu people. Think about Basotho people. Think about Botswana people. Think about every group in this country. Every one of us. All of us that are African. All of us. We have all had to fight colonial power at some point. At some point, you had to fight. Somewhere, you had to fight. So I'm saying, if this child and this child is the same thing, went through the same experiences, are they not also similar? Are they not the same? So when I'm saying we've also suffered, I'm saying I'm qualifying where colored people find themselves and where we find ourselves in relation to our brothers and sisters. We also went through this. Just like the child in Jukle, just like the child in Mitchell's Plain. Then I say we too have struggled and waged war against the colonial project. Our struggle in resisting the Dutch, British and Portuguese was gruesome, bitter, icy and cold. Goes without saying. Our battles and eventual victory against the apartheid regime have become a monument of something that is not recognized by the government. Ask anybody in South Africa that's not in PE or that knows about this, what happened in the northern areas during apartheid. Why there's buildings that are burnt down. Don't know because it's not in a history book. Ask about Abraham Esau. Don't know because it's not in the history book. Ask about Sarah Bartman. Don't know. Not in the history book. Ask about Harry die Strandloper's real name. Don't know. It's not in the history book. Who was Kritoa? Don't know. It's not in the history book. Are you seeing this? Where's the memorialization? Where is that memorialization? Where is our history documented and given like that to everybody in South Africa? So, This is very important. Then I say, with our shared struggles, suffering, and aspirations to leave behind a better country than the one we were born into, it becomes undeniable that colored, Khoi, and San people are African, whether you like it or not. Goes without saying, right? As I've qualified it. Same, same. Therefore, same. Why not treated same? That is what I'm saying. So, and you know what? I wish those guys from Open Chats podcast could listen to stuff like this instead of listening to the nonsense that they speak of, or what informs it. But Honorable Speaker, who qualifies as African? Then this year, I'm going to say one of the DA ministers said, that day, I won't forget it. And I've got the message in case he wants to speak. He said that I enjoyed all of the speeches today, except for the part where a DA speaker uses DNA as a marker of identification. Something to that essence. Academics, not Darwinists, not eugenicists, academics define the markers of identity as geographical ancestry, cultural heritage, historical experiences, and social political context. Right? Geographical ancestry, cultural heritage, historical experiences, and social political context. Now, in the rest of the speech, what I do is then I qualify all four of these things. And qualify, same. Then I say, if this is the case, Khoi, San, and colored people must be included as Africans in particular. Then I lay out the argument. It is impossible to dismiss the notion that Khoi and San DNA and that colored people harbor this DNA, and that Khoi and San DNA is undeniably African, right? Take DNA of any colored person. You will find Khoi or San DNA inside of it, right? Early mitochondrial DNA samples point toward Khoi and San people being inhabitants of Africa for thousands of years before colonialism, with DNA found in Ethiopia, Namibia, and South Africa, agreeing that a shared DNA is found within human remains across the continent. What am I saying here? You can literally draw a triangle between South Africa, Namibia, and Ethiopia, right? And in this triangle, you can find the movement of the same person group, right? The same person group that is with a mitochondria, with a piece of their DNA shared with Khoi and San and colored people today. Africa. Let's say Africa is this, right? I'm going to use my mouse's box. This is Africa, right? And in this Africa, yeah, you can literally draw a triangle that shows the movement of one people group. And the DNA that was found within human remains that are thousands of years old. The DNA that is found in that DNA, that is found in our DNA, is the same DNA. So when we say no DNA, just RSA, we mean it. Ons as kinders van die soil. This is also ours, this. We are all here. Same. Not same. That is what I am saying. Yo, Revelations. Yo, my hart het ook plat gelê, yo. Yo. Okay. And this one is exposing the headline. Let me pop up. Okay. Then I say, if you want to signal geographically we are African, that line is inspired by one Joe Mabua. I give him the credit for that line. The conclusion. Here we go. Okay. Then I say, just to substantiate this point further, I say rock paintings in Blombos and Kango caves indicate cultural practices of the First Nation, and they act as indisputable evidence of a culture native to this continent. So what is culture? Culture is an expression of the self as well, right? It is also how we express ourselves. So when I say that it is an expression of our culture, I am saying that it is evidence of an expression of a group of people within a certain region. Now, if we didn't paint those in Blombos and in Kango caves, if we didn't have rock paintings there, We don't have expressions of ourselves. But we have those there. Our many greats grandparents were the ones that painted those there. Meaning, undeniably, that there's an African culture. You cannot import a cave from another continent. You cannot import a painting from another continent. Especially when the painting itself can be scientifically measured via carbon to show that it is thousands of years old. Hey, ons hoor die tot daarvoor. And I say, with colored people, our classification became our culture. Our culture is found in the way we talk, the way we eat, what we eat, the food we eat, the liveliness of our neighborhoods, and the way that we live, the way that we are, our liveliness, how we express our being, how it is that we position ourselves, who and what we are is our culture. And you know how I know there's culture? Enige iemand wat hier is nou, enige een van julle wat hier is, kan in hierdie huis loop, and you will know how to say hello to me. I can walk into your mother's house, and I will know how to gedra myself. I will know how to behave myself. I can walk into a room full of old women and know that these are all my grandmothers. And know exactly what I am in that room. A cunt. So, that is what I say when this is culture. Our food tastes a certain way. You can smell a colored household's food. I will never forget when I was in PE with the by-election, that I could literally smell the inside of a house and be like, ja, nee, it's onze kostij. You can hear it in the neighborhoods, the liveliness of a colored neighborhood. Go to a by-election and listen what happens when we hoot the car. The car's on. As I hoot her beep beep, you just hear yes. Because you know, this is us. This is us. This is who we are. This is who we are. We have an identity. We may have struggled to find it. We may have struggled to figure it out. But believe you me, we have an identity. When they gave us nothing to form an identity of, we made an identity. We found ourselves from our history, from our ancestors, from what we've learned from them. So then I say it's supported by our language, Afrikaans, a language born on the African continent that owes a significant amount of its creation to colored people. This is a fact. It is colored people who engaged in the documentation of Afrikaans, who wrote down the first Afrikaans, who spoke it. It was known as a kitchen language. It was seen as a lower form of Dutch. It's ours. We did that. That's ours. We did that. But I like to say that Afrikaans belongs to all those who speak it. Because when you speak this language, right? And this is where I have a little contestation, because you have Afrikaans, you have Afrikaans, but I clump it together because it has many different of the same, right? But when you speak this language to somebody else, you can see that person. That's why Nelson Mandela says when you speak someone's language, you speak to their heart. So I want to say this. As colored people, when we see white people, when we see black people speaking Afrikaans, I want to encourage you to say, I want to encourage you to smile when that happens and engage. Knowing what you know, and thinking. And I want to break it down when I say black person. I'm saying somebody who is Xhosa, somebody who's Zulu, somebody who's Ndebele, somebody who's Swati, somebody who's Venda, somebody who's Xitsonga, someone who's Lobedu, somebody who's Pedi, somebody who is Sutu, somebody who is Tswana. When someone from there also speaks it, I want you to acknowledge that as being seen and being able to engage and being able to speak. So think about that. They are saying we must categorically state that our heroes deserve to be honored in this house. Then I spoke about Uchumato. He was imprisoned by Jan van Riebeeck. And when he was imprisoned, he was also, he got his guys and he said, gents, as na die man het ons gevang, maar ons gaan nou huis toe. Is julle saam? Nee, man said, and they got on a boat and escaped. Jan van Riebeeck goes around Robben Island looking for them, thinking, well, waar het hel is zijn mensen? Where are these people? Right? And then finds them just back in Cape Town. This man escaped Robben Island. This man escaped that. Right? So, he was then imprisoned and then murdered because he was himself, because of who and what he was. Jan van Riebeeck understood that this is a man who understood exactly what he was and was leading people, right? Was leading people, was saying, as a society, we must collaborate, all of that. We are not going to collaborate with people who don't see us. He got murdered for that. He got his life taken away from him for that. Sarah Baartman. Now, Sarah Baartman, I want to say for another live. In this live, Umbiza, if you are still watching, Ashley, if you are still watching this live is a live we are going to do together. Because the Sarah Baartman story is a story that I can speak for 2 hours on. I'm not going to do it tonight. Abraham Eso, the man who was beaten, lashed with whips, bludgeoned, shackled, dragged by horses for 8 kilometers and beaten one more time. That's in Calvinia in the Northern Cape. Murdered. Brutally. A leader. My auntie, Joy Stewart, and she was on this live, she commented just now. Sentenced to solitary confinement. Nearly became one of the Craddock Four. But didn't. Because the message came a bit too late. She was headed there. The message for her to go there was a bit too late. Marjoy, if you're watching this, I love you very much. Very, very much. And I highlight these experiences and then I ask questions. Why is it that struggle icons that are not colored Khoi or San have their legacies and stories widely known and widely spread? I've spoken about that. Why is it that we don't tell the truth to our entire nation? This is the truth. Why is it that some memorials have dignity while others are incomplete, vandalized or broken? Why is it that we must constantly look at reminders that we are not seen? And I want to come to those memorials, and this is another reason why I say and agree that Gayton McKenzie is a colored hero and my leader. Why is it we must constantly look at reminders that we are not seen? That nobody cares about our history other than us? And I think the chat is a very staunch example of this. Why is it that Sarah Baartman is still having her dignity viciously taken away from her 200 years later? Her center is incomplete. And when we went to the center, I want to tell you what happened when we went there. I'm going to get caught into the story, but we went there and her site had been desecrated, hurt, the dignity robbed, rocks removed, sacred rocks removed. And that is her dignity being robbed from her one more time in 2025. And I'm going to come back to that. This is the slide I'm going to do with Umbiza. Hoekom is Otjomatu se geskiedenis nog steeds weggelaat? Why is it locked up? Why is Abraham Esau's history has been defaced as if it was dragged across tar? Very important. Abraham Esau's monument. Abraham Esau's monument in Calvinia. Look, take for yourself. Go and look for yourself. That man's monument in Calvinia. Again, I thank Joe McGlua for pointing this out for me. That man's monument is rusted, defaced, horrible. It is desecrated. As if it was, his monument literally looks like him. It was taken as if it was taken and scratched across tar for 8 kilometers. That there, in 2025. Why is David Stearman still fighting colonialism? Why? Because some people still type in Port Elizabeth International Airport and not Chief David Stearman International Airport. Hoekom word ons steeds hier raak gesien as dit by werk en bevordering kom? Hoekom word ons nie dieselfde behandel as dit by geleenthede kom nie? Think about what happens when EPWP happens. Think about what happens when our children, when our people are not seen here. Think about what happens when it comes to who's getting the jobs. Where are they getting these jobs? Think about it. I will publish this speech. These experiences are encoded in my DNA and the DNA of a great many in those houses today. A house that sits no more than 200 meters from a tree where my ancestors were auctioned for a penny as if their lives meant nothing. Outside of Parliament, I want you to see this. Can't remember the road's name, but Parliament Street goes like this. If you turn right by the McDonald's, you will see there's a memorial type thing. That memorial is an auction block. There used to be a tree there, right outside of Parliament, the legislative hub of the country. There was a tree where our ancestors were sold. So that made me think, how come the places where we were robbed of our dignity, the places where we were sold, the places where we were told we were inhumane, the places where inhumane actions have happened to us, why is it that in these places they are remembered, but our icons are not remembered? It is because we are not seen. I'm getting to my conclusion on this. In 2024, we can no longer remain silent. We must make our voices thick in the name of our ancestors and those who are still living. Because it is not only about the dead, it is about the living. Because if we do not make our voices thick, if we do not make our voices heard, if we do not say, we also have a place here, if we do not say, ons baizani, if we do not say that we are standing cement fast, then we are failing the present. And I'm gonna just, let me see if I can quickly, okay, I can't block. Can I? Yeah, I'm banning this individual who is saying that we are products of the R word because I don't want to entertain that. Banned. Okay? Gone. Gone. Dis onze tafel die. En ek gooi jou uit as jy nie wil luister. And if you don't want to be respectful. As I was saying. I say we can no longer remain silent. It is about the millions more living in poverty and living in isolation. What is isolation? Isolation is the DA saying, where the DA governs, the DA governs best. The best example. I used to believe this nonsense. The best place we govern in the country is the city of Cape Town. The city of Cape Town. Everybody goes there for holiday. It must be the best place. What about the Cape Town behind the mountain? What about Cape Town behind the mountain? What about Cape Town behind the mountain? Now, this is why I say isolation. Because it's isolation from service delivery. It is isolation from that we need to make a decent living. It is isolation. It is being thrown one side. As gesê, daar is julle se plek daar. Wat soek jy hierso by ons plekke? Ja, jy kan vir ons die geld gee wat jy kry. Jy kan vir ons jou geld gee by ons plekke. Ja, want jy kan nie hier bly nie. Hoekom? Jy kan dit nie bekostig nie. Ons gaan vir julle huise bou. We are going to build you big houses. We are going to give you places to stay. Just not in our areas. Okay? We're going to build you places to stay. We're going to give you a place to stay. But we're going to keep you isolated. At arm's length. We're going to build you a house. Not in Constantia. Not in our farms where our horses have more space than you. We are going to build houses for you in Hanover Park. And we say it with a smile. Wat de pa? Huh? How do you hear this and think that that is a party that cares about you? We're building you houses in your areas. Can't I have a house in your area? No, you need to buy the house in my area. But I don't have generational wealth to buy the house. But for you, I'm going to sell the house to all these Russians. Sorry for you. I'm just going to forget about you. But I need services here. Yeah, we are investing services with companies that don't come from your places at all. I'm going to give you services for your people. Your people are not going to be able to provide your own people services. We're going to give you services. We are going to invest in infrastructure. Yeah, sure. It's not away infrastructure. But we're going to keep you isolated. You're going to live there. Because you can go to our university. You can go to our university in our area, but when you go home, you got to go back to all of your issues at home. You're not going to bring your issues here. That is what they've been saying to us. When you go home, you can come and study at our university. Study at our university, where we don't hear the sounds of guns, where murder isn't a common feat. Come to our university. But when you go home and you are trying to study, enjoy trying to study when you hear. Enjoy trying to study when you read on a WhatsApp group about how your uncle has just died. Then maybe, just maybe, you could buy a house. Not even buy a house. Maybe, just maybe you get a job that is good enough. Jy kry 'n werk wat goed genoeg is om hulle se huise te kan bekostig. En nie eens te bekostig nie, not even to be able to afford, you get a job good enough to rent from them. That's it. That is it. That is the full stop. How messed up is that? How? So that is what isolation is. I give you everything, but you have nothing. I give you the seat at the table, but your plate will forever be empty. So that is what you've got to, that is what you've got to sit with and grapple with. And you know what I've liked throughout all of this? I still have them as friends on Facebook. I see colored folk from the DA watching this. And I hope that you sit and you think about this. And when you're done thinking about it, muni baizani. As I was saying, we sing about mothers and fathers being kitchen girls and garden boys, but we don't acknowledge or tell the story of Kritoa, our grandmother who worked in, our Khoi mother who worked in Van Riebeek's kitchen, my great-grandmother, Mam Pauline, who also worked in a kitchen. We don't tell the stories of our fathers who became bond servants on farms. Yes, honorable members, you heard me correctly. Khoisan and colored people served in bondage as slaves. Now, that there is a direct reference to singing the song. So I'm sure you've heard Ayaba, 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 and then somebody will sing, my mother was a kitchen girl, da, 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 da. My father was a garden boy. And then the song goes on and says, that's why I'm a communist, right? That's like, some people end it like that. Some people just keep singing Ayaba. But we sing the song to pretend, not to pretend, but we sing the song not acknowledging that colored people had the same. My literal great-grandmother worked in a boss's kitchen. Worked inside of a boss's kitchen. Had to answer somebody, yeah, boss, near boss. My great-grandmother, and just like many of yours watching here, my great-grandmother cannot have come out of that kitchen, raised my grandmother, my beautiful, beautiful grandmother. And this is from my mother's side. She could not have done that. And keep this in mind, her husband is a World War II veteran. A World War II veteran who drove for the South African army that was helping the Allied forces at the time. My great-grandfather, who for his efforts fighting a war, didn't get a house, didn't get a car, got a bicycle. He got a bicycle. So, she didn't, and he didn't go through all of that. And my grandmother didn't go through all of that. And my mother and everyone else on my father's side also did not go through all of this, lived through apartheid. For me and you to still say ja baas, nee baas in 2025. That is done. That is finished. It stops here. It stops here. So, as I was saying, we talk about the injustice and suffering of apartheid, but pretend as if Khoi and colored people and San people suffered a different apartheid. Then I speak about the tricameral parliament, the voting turnout, and I want to explain to you this. The voter turnout in the tricameral elections, 12%, 12%, meaning 87 to 88% of colored people looked at that elections and threw middle fingers up and went to protest against the government. Meaning that only 12% of people, 12% said, yeah, we want some power. Just the 12%. So many times you will hear people say that, yeah, but you had representation in apartheid. No, we didn't. It did nothing for us. We did not support it. Most colored people did not support it. So never ever say that colored people had representation in apartheid, because we did not. We did not. We talk about land dispossession, right? The EFF will often say land. But we're forgetting how guns and pox, disease, that our bodies were not acclimatized to, kill us. Ons maak asof ons fyn is, terwyl ons die Khoi en San sukkel vir bestaansreg, existence right to exist. Terwyl ons bid dat dinge beter sal word, while we pray. Now that line there is important, because my people are a hopeful people, and we must never, ever, ever lose that. Honorable Chairperson, if anyone in this house refuses to acknowledge Khoi and San people and colored people are also Africans in particular, may the history books remember them as being tone deaf to a struggle that is over 500 years old. Over 500, so I got you 1488. I would go as far as to say they are complicit in continuing the crimes of the past. Why? Because it's an epistemic injustice. Okay? So let me say why this is violent and complicity. You are complicit because you are allowing it and you are perpetuating it. If you allow it and you perpetuate it, what are you doing? You are continuing. And therefore, if you don't see colored people, you don't see Khoi people, you don't see San people, as Africans in particular, you don't see us at all, you are continuing the trauma that we've experienced. You are not seeing us and you are denying us existence. So, you are complicit. And I said, if you are unable to see the 500-year-old struggle of my people, you'll never be able to see me or my people. We've spoken about being seen. We cannot move forward if we do not answer the national question. We cannot move wholeheartedly towards non-racialism if the existence of Khoisan and colored people is not considered an African existence. And this is something I'm going to write about when I do my master's. Every nationalism has happened for everyone else. African nationalism has happened. White nationalism has happened. And a form of Indian nationalism has also happened, right? And is reoccurring in a different way, right? But colored people have not been acknowledged. Colored people have not been seen. And if colored people have not been seen, we cannot engage in how we want to structure our society if we are not seen in the society. Then I say, as ons saam staan, staan ons sterk. As ons apart staan, staan ons swak. And what I'm saying there is, if we stand apart, we stand weak. If we stand together, we stand strong. And that is why I'm saying, ek is by die huis. Because I would never have been able to do this live stream any other way.